Are we live?
We are now live.
Oh wow. This
So,
is I'm a little nervous.
nothing to get nervous about. You just start talking, and then I'll find your spot, and whatever hits home, and then you won't shut up after that.
That's true. That's true.
Just try to speak up a little bit, and you should be good.
All right. How's this?
Yeah, you're good. So, tell me about yourself. Well, I know, but like everyone who's listening.
All right. So I am Amin Junior Mithani. Um, I'm half Mexican, half Pakistani. That's a big one that
Yeah,
comes into
that's
play
your
a lot.
brand. You're Mexican.
Yeah. So a lot of my friends know me as Paxican, and it's a self-made name. So pretty much anytime I play a game or like any of my handles on social media, you'll find me as Paxican. So if you want to know if I play a game, just search up the name Paxican, and if it's there, it's me,
Not even 30 seconds into, you're already giving yourself a shout out.
dude. I have to.
Hey, I can respect that though.
Yeah, I mean, shout out Jordan Olguin, man, setting all this up. The Boring Podcast, a really good podcast. I listened to every single episode so far.
What's your favorite so far?
I really resonated with Niall's episode and Nicole's episode.
Hmm. What's that?
I I went to high school with you guys, and me and you knew each other in high school, but I never talked to Niall in high school, and I had a really false perception of the kind of person he was.
Try to stay in front of the mic. Yeah.
But after listening to that podcast, it completely changed like my perception of him as a person, and I think because you gave him this platform that he was able to make a case for himself. Like I never talked to him, so it was just like what I've heard from other people and just seeing him in the hallways. But after listening to his episode of the podcast, just completely changed. So I think you doing this changes people's perceptions of other people, and I think that's super cool.
I appreciate that.
And also the episode with Mr. Rainey, like I had him as a teacher, loved him, and
Even though
after,
you always took a nap in there like every day.
dude, yes, but I
I mean, I was there. Half of the time I was here, I was high. So. And you
I
know
mean,
that.
yeah,
He knew that.
he knew that. It's because he was such a chill teacher, and
Dude,
he.
I told him. I remember that one day I think we are supposed to present, and then I came in high that day.
Oh my
I was
god,
like, Rainy, I can't present. I'm too
dude.
fucked up for this.
So I did feel bad because like senior year was not my best year, and senioritis hit hard.
I just didn't give a fuck.
Yeah, so I'd either sleep in his class, skip his class, be late, cause it was lunch period, man. So like
Yeah, that's why. I would
during
always bring him food though.
yeah during lunch, it's just like, should I go to fourth period or should I just like chill the entire time? Because it's such a long period. And so there is a lot of stuff that I didn't do in his class that I wish I did.
Damn.
But he was a really good teacher. And Mr. Rainey, if you're listening to this, I do appreciate everything you do for your
He
students.
probably will. He's like, hey, it's me. I wonder if he's been. Click.
But yeah. And then something else about me. I work 2 jobs right now. I work at Starbucks, and
Shout out.
I got Jordan the job at Starbucks, and he was our most recent partner of the quarter.
I mean, it
So
sounds the fucking best.
yeah, dude, Jordan's a really good like barista in general, and I think other people who work at Starbucks or just other people come into the store will acknowledge that and appreciate that about him.
I do appreciate that though.
And then I also work at a middle school in Louisville with at-risk youth, and I say at risk because a lot of people just think if you're an at-risk youth, it's because you're probably gonna go out and do drugs. But some of these kids are already doing drugs, and it's kind of crazy because in middle school I didn't even know what weed looked like, man. I'd see the marijuana leaf and I'd be like, whoa, is that
Whoa.
weed?
Is
I'm
this the
calling the
marijuana?
police. But yeah, man.
You've changed so much since like I first met. You were actually one of like my first friends at high school. That
Yeah.
wasn't from my middle school.
Yeah, because
'Cause
we had like almost
I
half
would
our
always see
classes.
like, man, what's this kid doing here? He's
Mm-hmm.
just following me, and then like the next one, like, oh, he's here again, and it's just like I think we had every class
Dude, yeah, our schedules were
for
pretty
like
similar.
one, yeah, like throughout all 4 years. I'm like, you know what? I guess I might as well talk to this kid.
Yeah, man. But I mean, it was really good because we had AMAT together every year, and then we went to Sundance, and that was
Oh
like so
yeah,
much fun.
that was fun.
Yeah, dudes. I'm thinking of doing Sundance again in 2021 because it's too late to plan for now. But I really want to go back to Utah and experience
I'm thinking
Sundance
about
again.
buying a property over there 2021.
Oh, really?
I've been thinking about it for a while, but now it's like that time where it can actually happen. Cuz I think about a lot of stuff all the time. But one of the like that's one of my things that looks real. Like I can actually buy something over there and just like chill in the winter, like the mountains.
That's true. You're gonna have a ranch like Kanye.
That's the type of shit I've been going into recently. That's why like even for this like the podcast, cuz the first one in like I don't know how many months, but it was cuz I've been in school the whole time slash working at Starbucks full time. So I haven't really had time for much, but here we are. What is it? December 17th when this is being recorded.
Yeah, man. It's almost the end of the year, or more like the end of the decade. It's a little crazy to think that these 10 years flew by like that. I started 2010 as a 9-year-old, going into 2020, 19 years old, and then I'm gonna turn 20 in 2020. I think that's something cool about all of us born in 2000,
Yeah.
that our birthday, and like how
Shout
old
out
we
to those
are.
2000 people though.
Dude, Year of the Dragon, best year, honestly.
Yeah, that's when it restarts, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It restarts at the
every 12
dragon.
years, yeah. So 2012 was the dragon, and 2024 will be the dragon again. But honestly, best Chinese New Year animal.
So let's start off with that. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
It's kind of crazy because, uh, when I was 10, I still had high hopes for myself. You know,
Like what?
I dream of Ivy League schools. You know that every little brown boy, every little Asian kid wants to go to Harvard, wants to go to Stanford. But I don't know, just things changed. And then the person I was
What
changed.
was the downfall?
I'd say my downfall was middle school, when I was more concerned about having fun in school and doing things I actually liked than grades. And so when we got to high school and we met people like David, who was our valedictorian, and like he was all about school, like people like that just seemed really uptight. And I was like, that I don't think that's for me. And so I was always middle of the pack.
It's funny you say that because now I see those people that were uptight for those 4 years. I see them the same as I did before. Like, man, look, they're just at school all the time. They don't have lives.
Well, see, the thing with David is I've gotten really close to David. And I think it's super cool that I got close to David, because when I look at David, I see the American dream. It's kind of crazy, but I see the American dream in
Yeah,
David.
you have a good point, but just explain the story a little more.
So, David is Colombian. He was born and raised in Colombia, and he moved here when he was in middle school. I didn't meet him until high school, but this is his story. And so, when David was in middle school, he did all his things to learn English and get really good at school. And so by the time he was in high school, he was always grinding. He was always doing work. And I remember freshman year, we had a group project where it was me and him together. I went over to his house. Boy had a whole floor in his apartment dedicated to himself. He had a giant whiteboard, two computers, and like we did the whole project there. And like you just know that this boy is gonna turn into a man, and he was gonna go somewhere. And so he is the perfect child for his parents, because his parents did everything for him, and the best he did was give back to his parents by being valedictorian.
Damn.
Yeah, David's story like makes me really proud to be his friend, and like I'm really like proud just to show that things are possible. Like boy came when he was in middle school.
Boy Meets World.
Boy meets world. Yeah, he came when he was in
It's
middle
more like
school.
Boy Meets America.
Didn't know English as well as he does now. Then just graduated. He goes to UTD on basically a full ride. So he's doing really good for himself. And I look at people like David, and I can admire that. But people who are like, go to school without really knowing what they want to do, it's kind of a waste of time. But it's also like they don't know what else they should be doing with their life in that moment. So I totally understand. Because I went to UNT, and then this semester my finances got messed up with FAFSA, so I had to take the semester off. But I was super worried going into it. But the people around me were just like, you know what, man, 1 year, 1 semester off won't kill you. Everybody takes a break, and like that really settled my nerves. And really got into the routine of no school. So it's gonna be kind of hard in January when I go back to to go back to school. So I'm just worried about how that's gonna all pan out.
It's funny because with me, I did that. I started my gap year quote, but like you said, I got used to that whole like no school, going to work. Plus, I wasn't just one of those like 9 to 5. I'm done because I also had I've always tried to have something on the side, whether it was like editing a video or doing something, and it's just kept going. Like the adrenaline keeps going. Cause like now, I told you earlier, but I'm gonna start. But my days are gonna get even longer. Cause now, as I was saying, I was in school to become a real estate agent and like go into real estate. So now I'm gonna have that full time and Starbucks full time, and then I'll have, for example, I'm not gonna stop the podcast. That's why we're here now. I'm not gonna stop doing videos. That's why I still have that going on, and it's just that's my life now. I haven't done much. Like I haven't gone out. Like people say like, hey, like do you ever go out and enjoy yourself every once in a while? I'm like, I'll probably go walk around the mall for a bit, but I don't like go out and party and stuff like that. That's not for me.
So about being a real estate agent, are you gonna need help with that car payment? Cause
My
you just
Tesla,
got a.
my Tesla. I mean, I got 2 years to get that Tesla. I got 2 years to build up credit, so I think it should be good.
Yeah. Um, Tell us about your Tesla, man. Because I'm excited for your
Hey, I'm
Tesla.
interviewing you, okay? Nah, I mean, just look up the Tesla Cybertruck. That's really it. Just look at videos. Elon Musk explains it a lot better than I do. Shout out to Elon.
You're gonna be driving the biggest meme of 2019 in 2021.
I mean, that's just really good marketing.
That's true.
When was the last time you saw a Tesla ad anywhere?
You don't really see Tesla ads. You just hear Tesla from word of mouth, and you just go around and you see a Tesla pretty much everywhere you go now.
Yeah, that's because Elon doesn't pay for marketing. When have you seen a Yeezy ad?
That's also true.
A
You don't
Kanye
even
West
know
ad?
when Yeezys are gonna drop unless you follow like Yeezy
Yeah,
pages.
that's just like those are my two. Like for people that don't follow me on Instagram yet, those are like my two biggest inspirations: Kanye West and Elon Musk. Just the way they do things
I
was
think
just crazy. Like you go on your TV, you go anywhere, you're always gonna see like Ford F-150, the biggest truck, whatever. You can go see Dodge, like the strongest, whatever, or the fastest, blah blah blah. When have you seen a Tesla? Anything? Tesla billboard, Tesla ad on Facebook. You've never seen it because he prefers to spend his money on the actual product.
I think that's a big thing that Kanye West and Elon Musk both do. They take extreme advantage of social media. Elon Musk is very active, and when Kanye is active, everyone's talking about it because he's always tweeting some crazy stuff.
Kanye hasn't been active in a year though.
That's true.
Everyone's still buying Yeezys. Everyone's still like seeing like the Sunday services. He's now in churches
Yeah, the Sunday
because of
service
what he's
got really
done.
big, and you hear pretty much any Kanye performance, it's with Sunday service.
But no social media at all, or them personally didn't.
Yeah, he's not posting personally, but with everything he's
I
doing,
mean,
you see
obviously,
it on the
obviously, it gets
TL.
help from the Kardashians, but
Yeah, that's another big thing. Kanye's power move was marrying Kim Kardashian.
some people can disagree.
I mean, Kanye was always big. Like, I'm not gonna doubt that Kanye wasn't big because he was doing big things from the start. But that was one thing because there was Amber Rose, and then that fell apart. So he bounced back with the
That was
Kardashian.
Taylor Swift.
Hey, he still thinks he can get Taylor Swift, man.
I have no comment about that.
But yeah, I think Kanye as a person is complex, and he can be a little crazy. But when you really think about who Kanye is, he's a music man. And so when you look at the music,
He's an artist.
he's an artist. Yeah, but he's also a musical genius. Like if you've ever listened to Kanye, there's always a song that everybody knows. Everybody knows Gold Digger. Like,
She took my money.
yeah, dude,
I
there
think
there are
she got-
Kanye songs that like you probably grew up listening to that you don't even realize are Kanye songs.
That was me when I started out. I was looking back like, wait, he wrote Gold Digger all this time walking into Foot Locker. They would always
Mhm.
play Gold Digger or like Otis,
Mhm.
and I never realized it was him until like years later.
And then like Power.
Power.
Yeah, you'd always listen to Power.
I like every stadium ever and
Mhm.
Stronger.
Dude, yeah, so Kanye like he everybody's heard a Kanye song, even if they don't realize they've heard a Kanye song. And people will bash on him, but once they deep dive into his music, once they deep dive into his music, like they'll really understand why people hype up his music so much. Because before I listened to Kanye, I think the album that really brought me into the Kanye universe was The Life of Pablo. It's not his best album. It wasn't his best work,
Brandon told me about that story.
but I really do believe that with every album that comes out, he offers something new to his audience. He's not a repeat offender.
That's what he's scared of, really.
Yeah, there's this meme going around. It's like Kanye West can't make a heavy metal album, and then but they say that just so he can be like heavy metal, got to make a heavy metal album.
You never know.
You know, well, right now I think he's completely taken a new direction with Faith.
I mean, we think that every time he takes a new direction. Does he, though? He's still Kanye West.
Dude, he's just like a river that never stops finding new channels. Keeps flowing in different directions.
I mean, that's how it should be, shouldn't it? Just
Yeah,
find new thing.
I think artists should push themselves.
Not only
to,
artists, just overall.
Yeah, people in general like should push themselves to try things out of their comfort zone. Like for me this year, not going to school was a little crazy, but back in March, I planned a trip to Paris, and I was planning this trip without knowing. I don't know any French. Um, I've never been outside of North America, so this trip was a completely like out of my ball game. And so just the experience of planning this trip, the experience of preparing for this trip and actually going on the trip was something that I never want to it's something I never want to like forget. And
So people always ask me, how do you plan stuff? Like, how do you find this? How do you have time for it? And you're a person that just started doing that. Like, you're newer into this. Try to explain that a little more, like that process.
okay, so for me it was a little crazy cuz at the start of 2019, um my sister and I were having a conversation and she was like, "Hey, dude, you're young right now and you're working, so you've got money. I recommend that instead of spending your money on stupid things or like going out to eat all the time, save some money and plan a trip. Cuz like it's easiest and best to travel while you're young and have no responsibilities." And so I really took that to heart. And so I started going in my head and just thinking like, "Hey, where do I want to go? Like what's something that I have to see before I die?" And one of those destinations was Paris. Like everybody in the world knows Paris. And so for me, I didn't have a real connection to Paris. It was just like, oh, I want to go to France. I want to go see Paris. And so for me, when I started planning, I just did, some research on plane tickets to Paris, hotels to Paris. And personally, I use Expedia. It's not a plug or anything, but I find it easiest to use Expedia because they do your plane and your hotel all together. And so for me, because I was planning so far ahead, I went to Paris for 5 days, and my hotel with my flight was $700.
Is it round trip?
Round trip flight with 5 days in a hotel was $700. I planned. I started deciding on where I wanted to go in January. I booked in March and I went in October. So it's gonna take you the entire year to plan this, but it's all worth it because you're paying so little up front that once you actually get there, you would have had all year to save money. So by the time I went, I had so much money saved up. I really didn't care how much I was spending while I was there, just because like I knew I had planned this trip so far in advance. I knew it was coming, so I had it all set up to where when I go, I just want to have fun. I want to do what you do when you're in Paris.
Did you go drink or can you drink?
I religiously should not be drinking, but in Paris I did drink.
Yeah, that was my question. Because I
Yeah.
know religiously you can't.
Yeah, but
I mean, it's legal.
it's legal in Europe to drink at 18,
16 in Germany.
16 in Germany. Well, wasn't in Germany,
Oh,
so
it was
18.
18. Here's the thing about Europeans. If you look 16, they won't give a shit. They'll give you the alcohol.
Dude,
They know they did the same thing.
in
That cashier knows he did the same thing when he was 12 years old. He was walking around asking like a grown man in the street if he can buy him alcohol. They don't care.
the craziest thing for me
And
was
like here in my bad. Here in the US, you can be 15, they'll still ID you.
yeah, but I feel like at that point they're just like trying to tease you, like, oh, where's your ID?
Not sure.
The craziest thing for me was when I was in Paris, walking into bars without getting ID'd, or like the bouncers not even looking twice. I just walk in without being told anything. One time I thought they were gonna tell me something, but he was just opening the door for us, and I was like, oh my god! Like I just walked into a bar, like no questions asked. Don't gotta get some stupid like thing of Sharpie on my arm.
That
So
little X
that little
thing.
X or the little circle that's like, oh, you can't drink.
It's funny like seeing pictures of people. They're like, oh, having fun and stuff, but they have that giant X.
Yeah,
Like,
like
why bother?
completely ruins the effect. But yeah, definitely Paris was something that after experiencing for myself, a lot of people would say it was overrated. Like Paris itself is overrated, but I don't think it's overrated or underrated. I feel like if you want to see it, you should go see it, because Paris is definitely a city worth experiencing for yourself. Also, don't rent a car in Paris. They drive like crazy.
I mean, in Europe you can walk. Don't rent a car at all in Europe.
Yeah.
You can walk or train.
I mean, we didn't get a car,
Yeah,
but
that's why you can walk.
we did get a taxi from the basically a little shuttle from the airport to our hotel. But man was driving so crazy. He drove in places that were for pedestrians only. He went in little streets that were like only houses, which were also pedestrian only. Like he did not care where he was going while he was looking for our hotel, and he was getting pretty frustrated. He was driving around the city for almost an extra hour because he didn't know where our hotel was. When it didn't really have a road to it. You had to go up some steps after like parking on the side of the road. So yeah, he was a little crazy, but then I realized like most drivers were a little crazy over there. Like you think Texans or other people are bad drivers, like Houston, people from Houston, bad drivers. Nah, you gotta experience people driving in other places of the world.
Have you heard like the Indian drivers?
Yeah, I mean, I watch a lot of Bollywood movies, so I see it firsthand in movies, but I know for sure it's just like that in person.
Do you think it's true about the whole cow thing that they have to wait for the cow, or do they just go? That's always been my question. Cause they always joke about the cow and
I
stuff
think
like
it's
that.
legitimate. I think it's
You really
legit.
think so?
Yeah, if there's a cow in the middle of the street, you can't upset the cow, man. It's
You
like
cannot
it's a
upset the
cultural
cow.
thing.
Yeah,
So, gotta respect the culture.
cause like if I'm being correct, it's like they believe that once you die you get reincarnated or something like that.
Yeah, they have that belief. But it's kind of different everywhere you go because you'll talk to Indians who live here and they'll have like respect for their culture, but they won't do it at the same regard. Like if you're eating a hamburger in front of them, they're not going to be like, "Ooh, get away from me. You're eating like my ancestor." It's like, depending on where you live, your view
It
changes.
was a school shooter. That's so fucked up.
And
I apologize for people. It was just a joke. You can take a joke.
yeah,
That's
definitely.
why it's a boring podcast and it's explicit for a reason. So if you're getting offended, don't fucking listen to this.
But yeah, so going off of the Paris trip, after that, I think my next destination I want to visit is New Zealand cuz it's just so beautiful over there.
There you have to go in the winter.
Yeah, so I technically it'd be summer here, but it'd be the winter down there.
No, I
So
meant the other way. Like
winter
winter here.
here, summer over there.
Yeah.
Well, the way I wanted to do it is I just wanted it doesn't get super cold down there the way it does up north over here. So if you went over there in the winter, like
Is
their
that your
winter
phone?
time, oh my
The,
bad.
the disrespect.
Dude, I'm so sorry. I didn't know somebody would be calling me right
You're
now.
good.
But yeah, just I just want to experience some like nice weather while it's summer here and just go over there and just, chill out for a bit.
I had a friend that, or I met her in Germany, but she was a foreign exchange student from Argentina. And it's funny because I was there in October, which is winter in Germany, which was summer in Argentina. So that means she lived like the spring here, which was winter in Argentina. She lived through that, and she goes to Germany, and then now she has to live like the whole year being winter, and then like around March or April, something like that, she went back to Argentina. So she missed out on the summer again. So she was living like, she lived like 3 or 4 winters in a row.
That's crazy.
I know. I always think about that. Like,
Something similar to that is like when I went to Paris, obviously I flew there. So like I got on the plane from here at 7 o'clock at night, and then we got over there at like 1 p.m. their time, but it was the next day.
mm-hmm.
So it was I'd say a 9 hour flight, but because of time zone changes and all that, it was
It really throws you off.
yeah, it really
I
does.
remember my experience with that. It was a British flight, and I remember because we landed in London, and we had like our layover there. I think we left from here at like 10 at night, and like the whole way there, they gave us like food, they gave us like midnight snacks, stuff like that. They even gave us breakfast, like an hour and a half before we landed, 2 hours. They give us like a little breakfast,
Mhm.
coffee, whatever. And then I get off. It's like 1, but it felt like the 8 hours while I was on the plane, like my 8 hours of sleep, because I was more or less what the flight lasted, maybe a little less. But I
Mhm.
get off and it's like 1 in the afternoon already. I'm like, well, shit. And then it was during the winter, so it gets early there, or the sun goes down early because of how far north they are. So I remember I was in London for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then by the time I was in Germany, it was like 6 or 7. Cause even London's or England's another hour behind, like the rest of
Mhm.
Europe. So I got there like at 6 or 7. It was like dark, dark. And I still
Yeah.
had like the long train ride to where my friend lives from Frankfurt.
Yeah.
So that that was something. Plus at Frankfurt, like where the airport, my baggage didn't show up.
Dude, that
So
happened to us. Our
and then I had like I'm like, well shit, I'm not even staying here. I'm going to a different city. So I have to like call my friend like, where do you live? What's your address so they can send my shit there.
Yeah, our baggage was stuck in Paris because apparently you have to leave. You have to get to the airport like an hour and a half before your flight leaves, and
Mm.
that's like the last check-in for your flight. So we missed the check-in for our flight back to
Damn.
Dallas. So they had to reroute us, and they rerouted us to two different planes until they found one that took us to Chicago. So when we got to Chicago, they didn't even tell us what flight we were using to reroute to Dallas. They just put us on a plane to Chicago and said go. So like we were running in CDG to, which is the name of the airport
The
in Paris.
Paris one.
Yeah, the Paris airport. So we were running all the way across the airport to get to the terminal that took us to Chicago. And so we get to Chicago and we're trying to get our bags, and they're like, "Your bags are still in Paris." And we are like,
Oh.
"What?" They're like, "Yeah, because your flight got changed so many times, we didn't have enough time to take them off one plane and put them onto the one that was leaving." And so we had to wait a couple days to get our baggage from Paris to Dallas, but they brought it straight to our house.
Mhm.
But along with that, what we were talking about earlier was like time zones. When we left Paris, it was noon, and when we got to the States, it was 3 p.m. Same day.
Mhm.
So
So you're on the plane the whole day and you get off where you've only like
it's
advanced
like you
three
were yeah,
hours.
it's like you were only on the plane for 3 hours, but you still have the whole day ahead of
You're
you.
like, oh.
You still have another 9 hours. So you were up till noon, and then you did a 9 hour flight, and then you still got another 8 hours left to your day. So that was pretty crazy.
So what would your advice be then? Cause like to other newer people, cause there's a lot of people that really like crack under pressure. And then for example, like with that, with your baggage being in a different continent.
I think the biggest thing when it comes to travel is you really have to go with the flow, because you can plan for everything, but I guarantee you won't plan for some of the things that occur. Like you won't plan on getting lost in the city. You won't plan on losing some money. You won't plan on losing your wallet or losing your phone or not having service. Like,
Well, the service you can kind of plan out.
well, yeah, the service you can plan out. You can be like, hey, can I get like roaming data? But like when I went to Paris, my phone didn't have service.
You know what I was told by a local? Go to a Turkish shop.
To a Turkish shop.
A Turkish shop. They'll set you up in like 10 minutes. And you'll get
I
unlimited service for like 20 euros. I'm not even kidding.
I
It's
did
great.
I did research, and they're like, yeah, you can rent phones while you're there, or you can like buy a really cheap phone, get the cheapest plan like just for emergencies. And I was like, well, I'm only gonna be there 5 days, so it didn't really make sense to
Mhm.
do it. But I went with my family, so it was me, my sisters, my mom, my aunt from my mom's side, and then my grandparents from my mom's side. Luckily, they had roaming, so I'd use their hotspot whenever I could.
Yeah,
So
'cause I was there for a while, and we went to a Saturn, which is more or less the Best Buy, like the equivalent of Best Buy over there. And we tried setting stuff up, but they asked for like ID and like address and like a bunch of stuff. And then one of my friends who worked there, he was like, honestly, dude, there's a bunch of Turkish shops across the street. Just go to them, and they'll like set you up. It's probably not the most legal thing to do, but it works for the time you're there. So I'm like, yeah. So I went, and my friend just translated how I need service. I just like gave him my phone for like 5 minutes. Boom, I had service for the rest of the time I was there,
well,
which
that's
was like
good.
2 weeks.
That's good. Yeah, I wish I did have service while I was there, because I'm an avid Pokemon Go player, so I really wanted to catch some cool Pokemon from Paris.
If you want to talk about Pokemon Go, go to a different podcast then,
Oh my god! All right, we
or
can skip
you
we
can
can skip the
listen,
Pokemon
or
Go.
I'll listen, but I won't have any input.
Yeah, I
So
mean that's fine. We can skip the Pokemon Go. I just caught like a couple things in the airport when I had Wi-Fi, so I was like, okay, this is cool. I have Pokemon from Paris.
I tried playing for like a day or two. I was like, I don't understand any of this.
I mean,
I'm gonna move on.
when it first came out, it definitely wasn't the best, but a lot of people were hyped, and a
Yeah.
lot of people were getting run over trying to catch a Pikachu. So I think it's better now that a lot more people don't play. Weeds out a lot of the idiots.
How do you feel about like the whole? It's the government way of tracking you.
I
That's like
don't
one of the
care.
ways.
You know, wh- the thing with that is, sure, they have my location at all times, and I'm just playing a game. The thing that scares me is, I don't know if you know the rings, like the doorbell that has a camera, and then you can set them up in other rooms to like watch the other rooms. But those rings have this way that police can access it without your permission. Like if they ever need evidence or something, they can go into your recordings like without asking you for permission. Like they have access to everything that goes in front of your ring. And then another thing that happened recently was this family's ring got hacked and it was set up in their daughter's room, and the guy goes on the intercom and he starts talking to the little girl. He's like, "Hey, this is Santa Claus. I'm your friend."
Damn.
Yeah, so like the parents walk in and they're listening and they like shut the whole thing down. But like that is the scariest thing to happen, cuz the little girl was 8 years old, and like there's this man like watching her and like talking at her.
It
I
just
couldn't do that.
it's just scary how everything's so delicate and fragile. Like not only that, but like the Amazon Alexas, the Series, the Google, whatever.
Well, see, I have Google Home, and I'm really fine.
See, look, my Siri's talking. I didn't even say
You
anything.
said her
So
name though.
I said Siri, but that means
See, if I
like exactly what that means is that it's listening in
it's
to what
listening
you're
at all
saying.
times. Right, Siri? I thought my phone would do it, but
But
my phone's
no,
pretty
but
good about picking it up.
that's my
Like
like
it's
my
always
point
listening. Yeah.
stands. Your phone or your Alexa has to listen in
Mhm.
to the conversation. That's what I find scary.
And Google and I'm pretty sure Amazon have both come forward saying that their devices are always recording. Like
Um,
there's been
I mean, they have to. They're gonna be voice activated. They have to listen in.
there's a big murder case recently that they were trying to use the owner's Alexa to see if there was any audio recording from when she got murdered, when the lady got murdered. And so they were going through all the logs of everything that was recorded through that Alexa on that night.
That's a Nicole conversation.
That is a conversation for Nicole. She probably, it's kind of crazy how technology can help you solve murders like that. Cuz if there was no Alexa or anything there, you wouldn't know anything that went down that night.
It is fun, like just how different it is, because you don't see, because we're talking about it on that podcast, how you don't really see any more serial killers, but you see mass shooters.
Mhm. It and she was talking about it's just a different kind of killing. How
Because you
the
always
one.
talk about like the 70s, the 80s. You have like all these people
Mhm.
doing stuff. You had Ted Cruz as a
Ted Cruz, the Zodiac killer.
he's too young for that.
Or are
He
you talking
couldn't
about
be.
Ted Bundy?
No, but like it's just a new
Yeah,
like.
just a new wave
Mhm.
of how of killers and like how they're happening. So I mean, talking about killers, there comes the conversation of guns and like those mass shootings. The closest one that I think about, there's obviously El Paso, but there's a lot of news about how Dallas is becoming one of the least safe cities in America, and we are on track to be one of the cities with the highest homicide rates. And like you think about cities like Chicago and cities like New York who have really high crime rates, like Dallas is getting up there. Like it's
That's
rising
scary.
all year. And the year's almost over, so once 2020 hits and we get like our stats for how the year went, I'm real scared to see how bad Dallas really was this year. I mean, we had a shooter in downtown, like an active
Yeah,
shooter
we
in
did.
downtown earlier this year. And then, we have a lot of drills that go down in schools, go down in businesses.
That is
for
everywhere in America.
yeah. It's just crazy how
Mhm.
it's happening so much more often, and it's always on the news, yet nothing changes. Like, I feel like after the concert in Vegas, where the
Mhm.
shooter was in the hotel and he just shot down on all the people in the concert, in the outdoor concert, I think that's when it really should have changed. Like, there was enough mass shootings before that, and it just showed that the killers will do anything they have to do to get to the right place to carry out what they want to do.
It is scary because like you have the good guys with guns, but you also have the bad guys.
Hmm.
But especially here in America, I like my personal opinions. It's too late to not have a gun. Like it sounds fucked up, but that's really it.
I I lean more towards we shouldn't have guns, but I also feel like we really need good background checks, mental health checks. Just if you're gonna own a gun, we need to make sure that you are in the right state of mind and that you know what you're doing with a firearm. So, like, personally, I don't own a firearm. I don't think I'm going to soon because I've never held a firearm. I don't know how to operate a firearm. I'm interested, but also a person of my demeanor and how I look probably wouldn't go well with the firearm.
Mhm.
But I'm interested in learning, and I'm an American, so I'm fine with owning a firearm if I ever wanted to. But I truly believe that there needs to be better checks on who has these weapons.
Yeah, and then like the people that don't believe in that, they're gonna start talking about how you want to take away their Second Amendment, and that's an argument that those
Well, if you're
people would
fucked
have,
up in the head, I want to take away your Second Amendment.
but it's still an amendment. That's gonna be their argument, and you're not gonna change that. So that's like the really difficult part, and why we can't really advance with this issue.
Americans have the right to vote, but if you've been incarcerated, they take away that right. So if you pop up with a mental illness, we'll take away your right to own a firearm.
Mhm.
That I truly believe that.
But I mean, can't really change, or you could, but it's just really difficult. But it's just fucked up the way it is now.
Dude,
It's
our
just so
government's a piece
fragile.
of shit right now, man.
It's always been.
I mean, I
There,
feel like
it's really all
now
the
more
same
than
people.
ever,
I mean, now it's just more open. They're more open about it, but it's always been this way. That's what I believe.
the government has never been perfect. And you're right in a sense that it's more open because ooh, my bad. More people are more informed about what's going on. But the current president does a terrible job at keeping secrets, and the American people really know everything that goes on behind the scenes because the
Well, you should
turnover
know,
in his
shouldn't it?
cabinet. Well, I mean, we should know, but there are some things that the American public doesn't even need to bother with. Like, I feel like foreign affairs, you can handle that in the office. You don't need to be calling foreign countries asking to investigate your political opponents because that's America's business. That's not foreign country business. That shouldn't be a part of foreign affairs.
It's just funny how you say that, but even then, like, cause I try to see both, like both sides. I see like the good and the bad, but like other countries have been paying like a lot of the debts that the U.S. has had, and like how much money we invest in other countries, but we don't get shit back from it.
I mean, I get that side of the argument as well, but that's just because the U.S. is a superpower and we sort of have a responsibility to help the world. But I don't think we're helping the world in the ways that we should be helping them. Cause we provide like military aid, we provide healthcare aid, and we have so many nonprofits based in America that go around the world and help the world. But like just government wise, our government isn't doing a very good job with it.
Non-profits are sketchy.
not nonprofits are very sketchy, and there's this big thing. So there's this big thing that big businesses, you know how when you go to the grocery store or when you go to another, like a place where you buy clothes, they're like, "Hey, would you like to round up to like the next dollar amount so you can donate this much to charity?" So let's say your total's like 72.08. Would you like to donate 92 cents to round up to the next dollar and donate the 92 cents to charity? So that company will take those 92 cents, put it as money that they donated, and that's a tax break for that company. They're using your money to get their own tax break in their company. And this has been happening with so many companies do this where they take your money, they'll set up a donation, they'll donate that money, and then that gets them a
It's
tax
funny you
break.
use tax breaks, though. It's something I'm really interested in.
Tax breaks? Well, I mean, obviously America is a country where people come because they want to get wealthy, and I believe that America should be a country where people can get wealthy, but I also believe the wealth should be shared.
Cause they, like, I agree. Everyone should pay taxes. I mean, it's just the way it is. Period. But I don't understand a lot of the politicians that say that the wealthy should pay a lot more. I believe it should just be a percentage with everyone.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that everybody should pay their fair share. Like a percentage is all you really need, because if you're making $100,000 or you're only making $50,000, everybody should be paying the same percentage of their income. Just because the that's like saying if you go to a restaurant and you order a Coke and fries, and then you get the same service for ordering a steak, a beer, and dessert. It's the exact same service that you're getting, but you're tipping more because you bought more expensive food. Like, you're getting served by the same person, but because you ordered something different, you have to pay more in tip. That really doesn't make sense to me.
It's just the way a lot of people think, cause they look at Bill Gates and they're like, oh, Bill Gates doesn't need $100 billion, or Jeff Bezos doesn't need $150 billion, whatever it is. But in reality, do they really have $150 billion? Like, they don't. That's just a name. Like,
That's just their net worth,
yeah,
how much people think
cause
they're
that
worth.
and that's what a lot of people don't understand. Cause me coming from my dad, who's a business owner, like I see it. Cause maybe his employer, like employees make, say, 50 grand, for example, and my dad is making 150 grand. I'm not sure how much it is, but let's just say that. Like, if I'm one of them, they're obviously gonna look at my dad. Well, he's making a lot more than us. Why is he, like, he's doing the same amount of work? Like, why is he getting a lot more money than we are? But they don't see that my dad has to pay them, number one, and number two, he has to keep the shop up. He has to buy, like, all of the equipment, all of the material. Like, he has to buy everything. Like, it's coming out of his pocket. But people just see that Bill Gates has $100 billion. That he doesn't need $100 billion.
I see
But
the
why do
same
you
side
go?
of the coin.
Yeah, but like, why do you walk into Microsoft? Where do you think that money's from? That you go to you go to the mall. You walk into an Apple store. Who's paying for that?
That's true. I mean, I see the same side of the coin. My dad's been a business owner since he was 18, and so I've always grown up around my dad's businesses. He used to have convenience stores, and when he got out of that business, he went into the car business. But cars has always been his passion. So, but like you see it, because at the convenience stores, he was losing a lot of money, like because he was always buying merchandise. He had to pay his employees, and then they were always in sketch places. So sometimes his employees would do sketch things, like just straight up take money out of the register without even like saying anything. And so I also see it now in the car business, where a customer comes in saying, my dad always has really good deals on his cars. So a customer will come in saying they want to buy like his G Wagon for 28 grand when he has it listed for 35 grand, which it's like you're already getting a super good deal, because who's going to sell you a G Wagon for 35 grand? Now you're trying to take away his profit. You're trying to take away any of the money that he put into fixing up the car to get it into better shape than when he bought it. And so when you think about like the business owner side of things, you sympathize with them because they're doing what they have to do to make their own money. They don't want to be somebody's employee. They want to be their own boss. So they're doing what they have to do to remain in that position.
It's kind of like for people I don't know who Mr. Wonderful is or Kevin O'Leary. Like something that really hit, but it's really true. Is that everyone's a socialist until you start working for your own money. Cause like even like the way everything's structured, like whenever you're at home, you're a kid. Like your parents are paying for everything, right? Like you're gonna go to McDonald's, they're gonna buy your Happy Meal, or they're gonna say there's food at home, but they still paid for that food that's at home, no matter what it is, no matter if it's a little like a shitty like tuna sandwich, whatever it is, they still paid for it, and that's how we grow up. We grow up with being fed in the like literally like fed by our parents. So we look at the idea of socialism like, well, the government's giving us everything, like it's cool, right? But once you actually start making your own money and you start giving the government like tax money, you start saying like, wait, where are you taking my money? What are you gonna go do with it? Really, all they're gonna do is pay themselves more. Cause they even have an amendment, like it's like the 26th or something amendment, that they can vote to give themselves a raise. Like just think about that. Just let that sink in for a minute. They can vote to give themselves a raise.
I wish we could vote to give ourselves a raise.
And they have an amendment in the Constitution that allows that.
That's also another thing. Like cost of living in America in general has gone up, but wages haven't gone up as much as they're supposed to. And so when you hear stuff like other states raising their minimum wage to $15, $12, that's just because their cost of living is so high. Like it sounds good when you're living in another state. You're like, "Oh, I should move there." But when you move there, that wage that they're making is still barely livable. So, like, it's just
Yeah, that's why I don't really agree much with a minimum wage. Just cause it should be relative based off of where you live. If I'm gonna
mhm.
live in a shitty town in Alabama, just imagine how much $15 is. Period. Whereas if I go to LA, that ain't gonna be shit.
Yeah. Like you're not going to live in LA making $15 an hour. But the the thing is like you work and we also have the freedom to choose where we work cuz like we can apply for whatever jobs we want and obviously we get interviewed and if we get the job, we choose the job. We choose to stay there with the pay that they give us. But when you bust your ass and you realize like what I'm getting paid isn't what I deserve to be getting paid, like I deserve more than that, then I think that's when you need to step in and be like, "Hey, you're expecting a lot more from me and I'm giving it to you. So I expect a lot more from you. Like I should be getting paid more." Like,
And that comes back to the whole being aware, which
yeah,
is really what this whole podcast is about. It's being aware of like who you are, and like you said, if you feel like you need to get a raise or you need to get a new job, whatever it is, like just be vocal about it.
the thing about Starbucks though is they come off as a company that really cares about their employees. Like, they offer benefits such as stocks, they give you insurance, they help you set up 401ks, they give you vacation time, they give you sick time. Like they give you lots of benefits, but the pay is really meager for like somebody who wants to live on their own or move out. Cuz like if I was solely working at Starbucks, even if I was working 40 hours every week, I could not survive off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the stocks that I get that vest after 1 or 2 years of holding on to them isn't worth staying at the company.
I mean, even then, like, or at least the way I see them, I just see them as a way, like, as leverage. Because I don't, like I said, this is my point of view again, and I, like, I respect why everyone holds different jobs because we need every job. If you're a custodian, I'm gonna respect you the same way as if you're the owner of the building. That's just me. But the way I see it, at least for myself, is that that's just really a way to get leverage. That's why I respect everyone that works there, especially like younger entrepreneurs, because they're the ones that putting in like the 40 hours there, and they go home and do their more another 40 hours of like their own thing,
Mm-hmm.
or even then like if you're a parent or something, like you do your fair share then, and then you go home and you have to raise, like, you know what I mean,
Yeah,
like your
like
own
our
kids.
coworkers who have kids, like they come
Mhm.
to work super early in the morning, 4 a.m., 5 a.m.
Like 4 to 12, and then
Yeah, then they
they
go
go home to
home.
be a parent.
Yeah, they got to pick up their kids from school. They got to cook dinner, and then they got to be back to sleep by 8 o'clock so they can come back to work at 4 in the morning. And so, like, just the sacrifices you make
Mhm.
as an adult, it all it all just goes to show that it's not always easy, man.
I
Like I
mean, no one said life is easy.
That's true. Like I've been doing this for a couple months now where I have to wake up at 3 a.m. so I can open at Starbucks at 4 a.m. Then I'll work sometimes up to 12:30, 1 o'clock, and then after that I'll come home. I'll either nap or go to the gym, and then I've got to go to my other job until 7 o'clock at night. And by the time I get home, it's like, well, I gotta go to sleep now. Like take a shower and go to sleep because I gotta be back up at 3 in the morning. So my life had gone like pretty like this really repetitive cycle.
It's a grind, though.
It's the grind, man, honestly. Just the constant working. And the second job I have at the middle school is really what I'm passionate about. I care about the kids I work with, and I want to be a counselor someday.
Explain a little more about that, because we haven't touched. Because you never answered the question which we're gonna answer at the very end. The where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Just
So
explain a little bit as the
so
counseling.
at high school, I had a teacher who came my junior year. His name was Mr. Pro, and Mr. Pro,
Shout out.
shout out Mr. Pro, such
You better get him to listen to this. What are we like? We're like right at. We're about an hour and 58 minutes in. So.
Yeah, Mr. Pro has been a really big inspiration to me, and I still go to Turner to this day just so I can sit down and talk to him. Like I was there last week. He asked me to bring him some coffee beans because he ran out of coffee at home. I was like, I got you. But he really became my mentor, and he really became who I look up to because he really cared about his students and what was happening with them. And anytime I had a problem, I was in his office sitting in the little sofa he has in the corner, and we just talk it out. Like when I lost my best friend last year towards the end of the year, I really didn't know what to do. And so like I went and I talked to him, and he really helped me through that. He was just like, look, some best friends or like just friends in general are going to be there forever, and then some just grow out of you or you grow out of them, and you just got to move on with your life. Like it sucks because you spent the past 7 years with this person, and like you've done so much with this one person, and then they just like drop you and they're like, hey, like we're not friends anymore. It's just like, whoa, drop a big bomb on you. But yeah, he's really helped me through so much. and
Gotta get close.
and after like thinking about it, I was like, I want to be somebody like Mr. Pro. Like I want to be somebody who can have other people come to them and really seek comfort in them. And so I've got my group of kids at the middle school who are like, my kids. I got this boy named Luis, super clumsy kid, but hilarious. Like he was my first favorite. And at the beginning of the school year, he wasn't
So you're
coming.
saying your favorites. You
I
have
I have
favorites.
favorites, but I
They
never.
all do. So.
Yeah, like I was obviously Mr. Pro, one of Mr. Pro's favorites, but like he wasn't coming at the beginning of the year, and so sometime in October before I went to Paris, he came, and like I didn't recognize him because it'd been so long since he pulled up, because he came in sixth grade. He came for the summer, and then he stopped coming at the beginning of the school year, and so I sit down in front of him and I see that it's him, and I start crying, man. I started crying because I was like, "Oh my god, dude, you actually came back. You don't understand how much I missed you." Like that's my kid, man. Luis is my kid. Then I have this other girl. Her name is Alondra. I take care of her because I really broke her out of her shell in 6th grade. Like when I started working there, she didn't talk to anybody. She didn't talk to any of the instructors. She always sat in a corner reading a book. But every day I went in, I made sure to check up on her. I'd help her with her homework, and I just make sure that she was good. And she told me, she's like, "Mr. Amin, I've never had somebody who would like check up on me the way you do. Like nobody ever like asked me how I was doing or cared if I did my homework or not." And it's like, "Look, I'm here to help you do your homework. I'm here to just make sure that you're doing good." Because our program really does help kids who have nowhere to be after school. Or if they weren't in our program, they'd be out doing something stupid. So she was one of those who didn't have anything to do after school or would go home and literally do nothing. So our program really helps kids like that. And then I met a girl there, one of my students. Her name is Joanna. She's half Indian and half Mexican. And so yeah, so I really resonated with her obviously because I'm Pakistani and half Mexican. But her story is really different from mine because her dad walked out on them after having their little brother, and so it's really sad to hear her story. And like it's also kind of crazy that my parents are still together after like what 21 years because my older sister's 21. So and I still feel like my parents are very in love. And so I think it's crazy that my parents coming from such different cultural backgrounds are still together, especially when like people who come from the same cultural backgrounds get divorced real soon. And divorce rates in America are really high. So go my parents.
Anywhere.
Yeah,
I mean,
anywhere in general.
same with mine though, except they're both Mexican, and they've been together for. My brother's 27, so close, like 28,
Mhm.
29, like close. They're pushing 30 years
Yeah.
together. So it's like something you can respect. And like obviously they've had fights in the past. I'm sure
Yeah.
your parents have as
Yeah,
well. But
definitely.
it's funny 'cause they like I've talked to my mom like it was a few years ago. They got into a really big fight, and she was saying like the only reason like none of them leave is 'cause of us.
Mhm.
And just like it was just one of those things that really hit
Yeah.
like how much they do for us, like our
Yeah.
parents do for us.
Like my parents have gotten into pretty bad fights. And like, my dad's always like, "I'm gonna leave the house," or my mom's like, "I'm gonna leave the house." And then I talked to my mom one time. She's like, if I really wanted to, I'd walk out. We can go live with my mom, like my grandma. And so she's like, "But just for you guys growing up, I think like a real home environment is what you need." And at the end of the day, they still love each other and they'll go to sleep in the same bed every night, even if they're mad at each other. It's just because the love is there and they know what needs to get done, and they work together. Like they do the car business together.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So my mom works with my dad, and so they're together literally every single day.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a day where my mom and my dad aren't together, except when we went to Paris. We couldn't take my dad because he had to keep the business open. But yeah, I I see the love in my parents,
Shout out
and
to that though.
dude, yeah, especially because of how different they are. My dad being from Pakistan, my mom
Mm-hmm.
being from Mexico. And it's crazy because my dad learned Spanish while living in the States, so my dad knows so many languages, and
How many languages do we speak?
so fluently that I know he speaks. It's English, Spanish, Urdu, Gujarati, Hindi, and like a couple other subsects of like Pakistani Indian dialects. And then he can,
Fluently.
yeah, fluently. Yeah. It's cuz a lot of those languages are different, but
Mm-hmm.
they have a lot of similar words, so you can pick up what somebody's saying and then just talk back.
Yeah.
And so, but if any of those dialects come at him, he'll know what's going on and like he can
Mm-hmm.
respond perfectly. And so like it's crazy that my dad is a really smart person, And so I admire that about him. But he's also hard headed, like super stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some qualities I really admire about my dad. And then, there's other things that I wish I don't get from my dad getting
Mm-hmm.
older. But same with my mom. There's a lot of qualities I really admire about my mom. And there's also some qualities that I wish I don't get when I'm older. And I'm sure a lot of kids can say the same
Oh
about
yeah.
their
Oh yeah,
parents.
for sure. The ones that I always feel really bad for, like the ones that like grew up with single parents, or like something I don't though is like the single moms. Like when are they the feminists? Just 'cause they're always talking about like men don't do this, men blah blah blah. But there's also single dads out there.
Mhm. Yeah, and there's a lot of really good dads out there too that
Mhm.
don't get the recognition they deserve. And along with that, like I had a friend in high school who grew up in a single parent household. It was just her mom, and she had siblings. And I know she had a really rough time. So she spent a lot of time out of the house working, going to the gym, or doing something else. But yeah, she just home environment was never the best place to be because it was really hard to just to live that way because her dad was living somewhere else and like she didn't have the best relationship with her dad. And so it's
So you asked like a counselor that's like a guide for these kids. How do you pick up on that?
so I have this one kid, his name is Kevin. He's another one of my favorites. He's super involved in drugs. Like at school, he's basically the one who has to carry the drugs for the other people so they don't get caught cuz they'll raid the school once a week with dogs. And so there's a lot of hiding places in the school where they can hide the drugs, like way more than they'll have time for to check in just one sweep. And so he'll open up to me about where they hide it, when he has it, or where he has it. And it's so crazy that in middle school all of this is going on. And another one of my kids, like she straight up told me that when they go home, her little brother and her older brother will all just smoke out. Like they'll go to the park and they'll just smoke. And I'm just like, you guys are in middle school. It made me cry
Mhm.
knowing that they did that. Because I was like, your brains are still developing, guys.
So like that question, like how do you pick up on that to help them? And the second one would be like more of how do you develop that trust? Or maybe it should probably be the other way around where you can
So,
just answer the questions
all right.
based of
Yeah.
how you think.
So the trust has to come naturally. Like a lot of the kids they'll like, start opening up to you the more you talk to them. And so the more you'll get out of them and the more like you can just be straight up with the question like, "Hey, what's going on?" Or like sometimes they'll let it slip. Like they'll tell you what's going on at home or they'll tell you they're being bullied. And it's not always super apparent. But once you've been with these kids for like a year, like the same bunch of kids, you start to notice like differences in their behavior when one's acting funny, when one's down, but like not really putting off that vibe, but you can see it in their face. And so when I pick it up, I sit down with the kid and I'll be like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like at first they won't say anything. They'll be like, "I'm fine." Be like, "Okay, if you need anything, just let me know." So I'll walk away. Like 5 minutes later, the same kid will come up to me and be like, "Hey, can we talk?" And so like I think the saddest one I had was one of my students. One of my students came up to me and she was like, "Hey, Mr. Amin, over the weekend I was at home and there was a really big fight in the family because the same student had gotten abused by her father sexually. And so he's in jail. But she was just like, "Yeah, a lot of my family members blame me for him being in jail, even though it wasn't her fault that her father did stuff to her." And so her older brother was really mean about it. And so this in this one situation, her little brother also came at her and was like, "Yeah, it's your fault." And she's like, "That's the first time he's ever said that. He never said it was my fault. He always was on my side." And so when he did that, it really broke her. And so she was all like, "Yeah." At the same time, her little brother had a broken leg, so he had a lot. He had just gotten surgery, so he had a lot of medications. And so she was all like, "I went into the restroom and took all his medications and locked the door."
She said that?
She told me that, yeah. And so she was all like, "I was just gonna sit in there and wait for it to just be over." And then she's like, "But I was just thinking to myself, maybe I can try to say my point of view." So she came out. She tried to talk to them, and like they were still being mean to her. And she was all like, "You guys are the reason I took all of his medication." And so they went looking for his pills, couldn't find any of it. They checked the bathroom, they're all empty. So they rushed her to the hospital, and they straight up told him, like, "Hey, if you guys were like 10 minutes later, she would have been gone."
Wow.
So like I'm sitting down in a cafeteria, and like everything just goes away. It's just me and her having this conversation.
Was it just y'all two or other people?
No, like all the kids were around us, but like we were
Mhm.
sitting at a cafeteria table. Like there were a couple kids next to us, but obviously we were a little more secluded
Mhm.
to where we were having like a face-to-face conversation. But like she started the conversation with Mr. Amin. "I need to tell you something, but you can't get mad at me."
What the?
And I was all like, what do you mean I can't get mad at you? I don't even know what you did." And so I'm just like, "Okay, I promise I won't get mad at you." And then she starts talking, and it doesn't stop. And dude, the whole time I just want to start crying. But um, obviously she was okay. But that same day, she was like, "I don't even want to be here, Mr. Amin. Like, I don't want to go home. I don't want to be at school. I just, I don't see the point." And so that hit me really hard. That, because she's so young and she has so much left of life.
Yeah, their
They're middle
ranges are like
schoolers.
12, right?
Yeah, like
12, 13.
11 to 14.
Mhm.
And so, like, that just, it broke a piece of my heart, man. And so, like, I told her, I was like, "Hey, you need anything ever, like, I'm here. You can come up to me." And so she was just like, "Yeah, CPS is already involved. Like, they're trying to do stuff at my house to just change the environment." She was another thing she was mad about. She was like, "Ever since I came back from the hospital, like my family's being super nice, and like I really don't care, because if I didn't do what I did, their attitude would not have changed.
Mhm.
They would have still been assholes." And so like that hit hard too. And so driving home that day, I was crying, like just thinking about it. And so Joel works with me. One of my friends, Joel Pina, he works with me. So like I told him what happened, and obviously I told my boss what happened. But like every time I recounted the story, I cried. Like I'm surprised I'm not crying right now. It
You're probably holding it back. You're
I'm
good though.
holding it back,
No,
but
you're good.
but she is one of my closest students, and so knowing, like, just the thought of knowing that I could have come into work one day and she not being there, and like after a couple days somebody telling me like, "Hey, she committed suicide." I don't know if I'd be able to go back to work. But that's also like counselors, they deal with that on a daily basis. They'll
Mhm.
have cases like that, and they have to keep going back to work. And so navigating through that and making the right calls of when a student approaches you with something like that, it's all part of the job. And it's going to kill you to have to tell other people some of these things. But you do it because you care about them. Like they're always like, "No, you can't tell other people. You can't tell the principal. You can't tell other teachers, because then they'll all try to get involved." But that's the best course of action for the student. Like they don't know that. They're worried about covering their asses because they don't want people showing up at their house.
Mhm.
And so Like after she told me CPS was already involved and the house was already being investigated, like I knew like I could tell my boss and we could see what options were available for her through our program. And he was all like, "Well, if people are already involved, then we just need to make sure she keeps coming and we check up on her every day." And I'm happy to say she's doing a lot better now.
Mm. How long ago was that?
This is like a month ago.
Wow, really?
It was like probably when I got back from Paris.
Why?
Yeah. It broke me, man,
Yeah, no shit.
because you see the same kids every day, you know.
Mm.
These are your kids. You talk to them every day. You help them with your homework every day. I take them to the gym every day to like play basketball. Sometimes I'll sit down and we'll just talk at the table, and like knowing that one of your kids was almost gone, like just disappeared, it hurts.
Yeah. Do you see yourself ever becoming a teacher or like a counselor, like full time, or where do you see?
Um I see myself in a classroom. I can see myself in a classroom,
Mm-hmm.
but when you're in a classroom, you know, you only have certain sets of kids that you see. The program I work with, I get all of them. I get 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. And ideally, I'd want to work in a high school because I feel like those kids need a lot of help. But like after working in middle school, I see that middle schoolers also need a lot of help to even get to high school. And so at this point, I don't care where I work as long as I know I'm making an impact on these students. And I'd want to check on these kids. I want to check up on these kids as much as I can just to make sure they're doing good. And like I tell them, I'm like, hey, as soon as you guys graduate to high school, you know, I'll give you my number. I'll give you my social media. Like, keep in contact. I want to make sure you guys are doing good. And when you graduate from high school, you know, hit me up. I'll be at your graduation. I care about these kids, man. And I want to make sure they succeed. And so, like, I've asked our program directors, like, once they graduate from our program and middle school, like, is there anything I can do to help them succeed in high school? Like, well, yeah, you can tell them to come visit us. And like, we've had one kid. His name is Angel. He's got younger siblings in the program, but he still comes,
Mm-hmm.
and it's nice to see him, cause he's done a total 180 since high school, since middle school going into high school. Like, he used to be a pretty bad kid, but he's doing really good in high school. I'm really proud of him, and so I just want to make sure these kids are doing the best they can do.
I remember Rainey was talking about that, like in our podcast, that there's always that one teacher that they just change, like your, like your,
Like your outlook.
yeah, like your outlook, like your what you see, like the way you see things,
Mhm.
and it's just really like something that our current education system lacks of, because they
Mhm.
focus more on the grades, on the paper, like the numbers on the paper, instead of the actual children.
Yeah.
Because I remember I was talking to this with my brother a while ago, because he was telling me how everyone cheats on like every exam and like finals, etc. And then I was like, dude, I did the exact same thing. Like, we all did.
Mhm.
And then they always talk about cheating's a big thing, but the way I see it, at least, that if schools focus more on actually learning the material, there wouldn't be a need for it,
Yeah, cheating wouldn't be a problem.
because you actually know what you're doing, so you
Mhm.
wouldn't have to. And
Yeah.
it's like even like with, cause my classes, they were just like people, like it was a limited number of people, like 10 in the classroom at a time, something like that. So that really gave our instructor a lot more time to connect with us, stuff like that, and make sure we all got the material. So by the time there was a test, there wasn't really a need for cheating.
Yeah, and the thing about the teacher, like for me, my teacher was Mr. Pro.
Mhm.
Like, he's the teacher who really changed the way I saw things. But like, if Mr. Pro wasn't there, I technically never had a counselor who checked on my mental health in
Yeah,
high
like that
school.
was even a question he asked, that try to name at least two teachers that you remember well, that you had a genuine connection with, and that, you know what I mean?
Do you have two teachers?
I have Rainy
That's it from Turner.
that I can think of, cause he's the only one that like I still talk to stay on the regular.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll visit him. Like I met his wife. I met his kids.
Mm-hmm. For me, definitely Perot number one, and I'd say Myers would be number two.
Mm.
Because every time I walk into the orchestra room, I always check in with Myers,
Mhm.
make sure she's okay. But while I was in high school, definitely Miss Buntain.
Oh yeah.
Miss Buntain did the most to take care of me and pretty much
With
any
her
of her
school,
students.
like with her, it was more school wise.
Mhm.
'Cause she always made sure like I was okay, I was doing good.
Mhm.
But just like on life, it would be Rainy.
Yeah, but Buntain, like, she gave us a lot of her life stories,
Mhm.
and
Oh yeah.
she really told us, like, look, you might not know what you want to do, you might not know where you want to be or where you're gonna be,
Follow
but
the money.
follow the money. Like that was a big thing about Buntain.
Mhm.
Follow the money. Just if you don't know what to do in life and you're trying to find out a way to go, follow the money.
I need to get her on a podcast. I just realized that.
I
I
think
need
Miss
to.
Buntain would make a great addition to your
Ours
podcast.
would be just 4 hours if we're talking about like the time she got shot on the leg or whatever.
Or the time she accidentally grew cannabis in Alaska.
Is she on Facebook? She
Yeah, I
probably.
think she's on Facebook.
I'm gonna look her up. I'm gonna shoot her a text. And then,
Teresa Buntain.
wow, you just told the whole world who she
Hey,
is.
that's fine.
You
She's
know,
a really
yeah.
cool person.
True. Shout out.
Shout out.
It's just, I don't know, just a different life after high school, like after education period. Cause
Mhm.
even you said like your semester off was like really eye opening. Like traveling, that's why I really like love traveling, and I push people to do it. And I like when people look back at me and ask me like for tips on how to travel. 'Cause it's the most eye opening thing you can do.
Another big thing that helped me grow during my semester off was I'm in a long term relationship or long distance relationship. It's also long term. It's been 2 years.
Hmm.
So she goes to school in Galveston.
That's not even that bad. You can see her.
It's not that bad. Yeah, but so once a month I'll make the drive to Galveston, which is a 5 hour drive there, and then 5 hour drive back. Look, it's doable. It really is
Oh
doable,
yeah.
but it's killer on your mental, like knowing you have to do these long drives. And I mean, obviously, if I'm doing it, it's because I feel like she's worth it. And so it might be killer on my mental. It might be killer to sit in a chair for 5 hours, just like straight driving. But it's worth it. And so like understanding and valuing another person's worth
Mm-hmm.
has definitely like pushed me through. And like that was another big reason I was grinding so much, because I'd save money for school, save money for myself, and then I'd put money aside to see her every month. Or like when she would come into town, take her out and treat her real good when she was in town. Because before she left, things were getting really repetitive. It was kind of stale where, I'd go to work, come straight to her house, we just chill, I'd go home. And so like a lot of the spark was gone,
Mm-hmm.
but like really revitalizing a lot of it. And so now when she's here, like when she's actually here, I take full advantage of it. Like I'm with her all the time. I take her out all the time. Whatever she needs, I got her. Because that's just me showing like, hey, I really care and I'm really showing you that you're worth it. And so that's a big thing about me. That if I care for a person, I'm going to do what I can for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like when my best friend, former best friend, like for 7 years, anything she needed, I had her back. Like if she needed to go somewhere, I had her. If I needed someone to talk to, she needed someone to talk to. We had each other. So that was another reason why it bummed me out for a while when it just ended. Cause that was like 7 years. You build a friendship with someone and then it was just over. But I had my other friends, Jacob and Joel, who I've known since kindergarten, and I've gone to school with them ever since. Like we went to elementary, middle school, high school. We all three go to UNT. So like it's kind of like when I talk about it with my middle schoolers, uh, they always ask me how old I am, and so I'm like I'm 19. They all look at me, Mister, you're 19? You look like you're 24 or 25. Yeah, it's the beard.
Part of it's a beard. I was
Yeah,
about to
part
say
of it's
that.
the beard. But then they'll ask me, how old is Mr. Joel? I'll be like, he's 19, just like me. And then they'll be like, you're always talking to Mr. Joel. Are you guys friends? And we're like, obviously. And then we'll be like, we've known each other since kindergarten. And they'll just look at us like we're crazy. Like, you've known this guy since kindergarten? Like, you're still friends? And like, I'll admit, Joel and I weren't always friends. Like, we've known each other since kindergarten. We had the same friend group. But, like, we weren't the bestest of friends. But, like, just, especially in high school, it really helped, like, develop friendships. And Joel is one of those friends that, I'll have for a while. A good long while. Same with Jacob. And Nestor, met him in 7th grade. Still friends with him. And I feel like you and David were like two guys I met in high school that like I feel like I'm gonna have friends with for a while.
Brandon.
Dude, Brandon Green, I've known Brandon since middle school.
I'm upset Brandon doesn't want to do this.
Brandon doesn't want to do the podcast?
He says he's, quote, too nervous. I know
I can see that.
yeah, but I mean, fuck it.
I feel like once you guys start talking though, it'll keep going.
But it would be difficult to get him to sit down where you are. That's the difficult part.
Getting him to come out here.
I don't know, but he'd be interesting. Like because he has a good perspective on
Yeah.
a lot of things.
And I know this semester especially Brandon's gone through a couple crazy things that I'm sure he'd like to
Mm-hmm.
have an outlet for. But that's just with people in general. Things
yeah.
happen, and when you find an outlet and you really want to talk about it, you just do it. Like I've been excited to do your podcast for a while now,
Mm-hmm.
ever since you started, and you're like, "Hey, you
Yeah, same thing with
wanna
like
hop
Niall.
on?"
He even said that because he was saying like, I remember even before we started, he was all like super nervous and stuff. Like, dude, we're just gonna start talking and try press play. I'll just find a few questions you're good with, and you go off from there. And that's what happened.
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
like, you can listen to it.
He got super comfortable
Yeah, he
during
did.
the conversation. Like you can feel the tone of the conversation when you listen to it. Like he was pretty like formal about it, and then he was like, "Hey man, like I'm gonna be straight with you. Like this is the stuff we did while we were training,
Mm-hmm.
and like this is how I feel about like guns."
David, I also need to get on. Like,
Yeah,
get him
I
on.
feel like David would be a good one too. Like I feel like I started this in the beginning. You do a really good job at providing an outlet for people
Mhm.
to open up their perspective and allowing them to show who they really are.
Yeah, and that's like one of the things that I try to do. It's one of my many projects that I'm working on. Like this, like the hangout weekend. Just if you need an outlet, you're always here. Like have 3 different platforms, or yeah, like stages you can go on. Well, that's where I am currently. Plus, every once in a while, Instagram, so you can count that, I guess.
Mhm.
Just like where you can go off, talk about whatever.
Yeah.
And then not only that, but it can eventually inspire people. Cause I want this to be something inspirational where you can like you can find a person or like a type of person. Like I really clicked this because they did this. That's why I've been getting all sorts of people like military veteran, tattoo artist, biology teacher.
Um
Eventually, like English teacher, makeup artist, like anyone.
a big thing for me is I'd say if you're listening to this podcast, one thing I want you to take away is you need to travel. I'd
Yeah, I
say
was about to come back to that in a sec, but go on.
yeah, you definitely need to travel. You just pick a location and outside of North America is preferable so you see what the rest of the world looks like. And it's kind of crazy to think about when you go to another city or you go anywhere else in the world, you're just like people are here living their lives and I'm on the other side of the world living my life and we would have never crossed paths.
It's kind of like you were saying with Gomi, with your girlfriend, 'cause
Mhm.
like when y'all were like together here, it got stale. You did the same thing every day. You went to work, went with her to like the rest of the night, whatever. Same day, get up, do it again. It's really what we do here. Like go to work, do whatever, go back to bed, wake up, same thing. When you're over there, it's since it's a completely different environment.
Mhm.
Like you have to be aware where you are. You don't know if someone's gonna take whatever. You don't know where McDonald's is. Like you need to really like it really wakes you up. 'Cause you need to you know where you are. Or even for like my friends that are in Europe, I know they love to travel. Reason for that, it's a lot easier to like go to a completely different country from Germany. It's a lot cheaper too, so they're doing it. But I just want to get my people on this side to do it more because it's a lot more difficult. But it's just of how big the U.S. is.
Yeah, the U.S. has a lot of places that are obviously on a lot of people's
But
bucket
yeah,
lists. Like everybody wants to see Manhattan, Times Square,
like New
every
York,
yeah,
Miami, LA.
Miami, L.A.,
But like
Seattle.
over there, it's so compact.
Mhm.
'Cause you go to like Paris and then you have an hour plane ride. You go to London. It's like
Mhm.
completely different world. You can go an hour south to Italy or Spain. They're
Yep.
both completely different worlds.
And see, I obviously want to go to all those places before I die, but I also told myself that I'm not going to go back to a continent until I've been to every continent, besides Antarctica. So that's why New Zealand,
Why not Antarctica?
I don't think I'd have the money to go to Antarctica.
Well, right now you don't.
Right now, no, but maybe that'll be the last one. That'll probably be the last one before I restart my cycle. But definitely, like this year or coming up in 2020, I want to go to New Zealand, which is in the Australian continent, and then probably 2022 South America, 2023 either Africa or Asia. And if I go to Africa, I want to go to Egypt. I want to see Cairo, and then Asia's so huge, man. I can go anywhere in Asia. Like I can go to Korea, Japan, Pakistan, see my dad's home country. India's really big. I would say China, but I really don't want to go to China with all the problems they're having. But speaking of China, free Hong Kong. Sorry, Jordan, your podcast is going to be censored in China now.
I have a friend in Hong Kong though.
You have a friend in Hong Kong right now?
Hmm?
Have you talked to them?
Every once in a while we catch up. We send memes to each
Okay.
other.
Like
They're like
free
one of
Hong
those.
Kong memes? Or like
I
just memes in general?
both.
I ask him or ask your friend. I don't know if it's a him or her. Ask them on their perspective on the whole thing.
I
Because
should.
somebody like on the ground
Mhm.
over there, probably seeing some of it firsthand. I'm sure it gets a little crazy.
Oh yeah.
Like when I was going to Paris this year, a big thing was the yellow vest protest. And so when I was planning my trip, I was like, hopefully, like by the time I go, it won't be as crazy. And then a couple years before, I don't remember, but there was like a car bombing in Paris. Like a car was left on a bridge and it blew up. And so, like I know Paris is a really big destination, so it's bound to call in some crazy people. So like I just prayed when I went to Paris, nothing crazy
And
happened.
that's really, I mean, Dallas, like you said.
Yeah, Dallas is getting a little crazy.
I'm also getting a like law enforcement eventually, like some sort of law person on here or a first responder on here.
Yeah, we have
'Cause
a
they
lot of cops who pass by Starbucks. I'm sure you can get one of them.
shout out to Officer Crowder. You better be listening to this. I'm gonna give him a card, write my like the name of the podcast on it. Oh, I want to get him on here.
I feel
That'd be
like
cool.
he probably listened to Nicole since he knows Nicole.
Yeah.
And then I've talked to him maybe one or twice, but he's not my regular. It's kind of like
Mhm.
you have your regulars who
Yeah,
you
we all
talk
have
to
our own people.
all the time. And so me working the window, I talk to a lot of the same people in the window. And then
Mhm.
me coming at 4 a.m., I have all my customers who like walk in the door as soon as the door is open. So those are like my regulars.
Mhm.
So you have your regulars, but like I know him. I've seen
Mhm.
him. I've had a couple conversations with him, but not enough to say like that's my regular.
Mhm. It's why you develop that over time. Like you
Mhm.
develop your people, even though it's like literally everyone coming
Yeah,
in
we all
every
work in
day.
the same place. They all
But you
come in
just
at the same
develop your
time,
people.
but you just vibe with different customers.
It is like even with this, like I want there to be enough people from like all different sorts of backgrounds, all different sorts of like professions, and people. I just want this to be an outlet for people to come on, speak their minds, and I want people to find it and like vibe with someone, and then eventually like this is basically like my plan to grow this, just getting all sorts of people in,
It's
like
a really
different
good plan.
interests.
And then just throughout the years, like knowing you from freshman year to like this moment, I've seen a lot of growth in you as a person. And
I've seen a
so,
lot of growth in me in the past year,
yeah, you're definitely a different person. Like the maturity in
even
you,
from last year.
yeah, like you're definitely more mature, and you take a lot of things more serious because you understand like there's a future in you. Like you know what you want to do, and you're grinding, and that's respectable.
People ask why I do stuff. Really, my simple answer, like, I believe we're here to serve. Like, even as little as your parents, like they put in all this effort, all this time, all this money into you. The very least you can do is give back to them, serve them when they're old. If you have kids, well, you have to serve your kids, so they can do the same to you. And that's like that absolute minimum a human being should be able to do. If you want to do more, then obviously there's a lot more you can do. Like for example, you're helping like these kids in middle school like try to change them to be better before they go to high school, or just everyone's here to serve.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I believe. And people ask, well, why do you work at Starbucks?
What can I get started for you?
One, y- I was here, you referred me, so I was, fuck it, why not? But then the very first thing, shout out to Josh. But I remember one of the very first things he told me, because I wanted to be a morning person. He was like, you have to understand that this is everyone's routines. This is how everyone starts their day. So if you provide a good environment for them, if you treat them well, then they're gonna be happy. And then the way I think, I took it to another level. Because if they're in a good mood, then their office will be in a good mood, and then it'll just feed off of that, and it'll just keep going. Eventually, everyone else is good. Like the Carlton economy, the North Dallas economy is gonna be good.
I definitely feel that. Like,
Yeah, like you can take it to like a different level. I'm a strong believer of the butterfly effect.
mm-hmm.
Like everything could be good just because someone was happy with their cup of coffee.
Yeah. And it goes beyond that. Like once you know your regulars, you'll know their
Mhm.
order, what they get all the time. So we have this customer who comes in who mobile orders, and she gets her drink and a lemon loaf. And I noticed one time like she got
Oh
her drink
yeah.
but no lemon loaf. So I was like, "Hey Amy, put a lemon loaf in a bag and get it ready for the customer in the drive-through." And so we handed it to her. She's like, "Oh my god, I didn't even realize that I didn't order it. Thank you guys so much for like getting it ready for me." So like, that makes my day too, knowing that like we're appreciated for taking notice of our customers.
And that was like the whole thing, like what Starbucks talks about, the cup of coffee at a time. I forgot the thing. I have to go back into it.
We call Starbucks the third place. We're the
No, it was like the whole meaning. It's like one neighborhood, one cup of coffee, something like that.
I think we have it sitting. Oh, he's pulling out the book.
Onward by Howard Schultz. Say something while I look.
Um okay. Howard Schultz, presidential candidate?
No,
No,
not at the moment.
not at the moment. I think right now is a really bad time for rich people to run just
No,
cuz our
not only that. He just gonna fuck stuff up in terms of like the way political parties are. I mean, number one, they're shit. They both are. So that's my. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm in the middle because I like seeing the candidate. I don't like seeing the party.
Mhm. But to get anywhere in this country, you have to be affiliated.
Not really.
Well, I mean, we have these rich people who run as independents, but have any of them ever won an election?
They have not. I can't find it. Maybe it's.
But yeah, like just waiting for the day Jeff Bezos announces his candidacy, waiting for the. But you look at people like Bill Gates.
Mark Cuban might run.
Mark Cuban's talked about it before. I've seen an interview where they're like, "Hey, Mark, are you gonna run for president?" And he was like, "Yes, but not yet." He's biding his time. But like he's smart about it. He knows right now is not a good time for a billionaire to be running, or just a really rich person to be running for president. Because the rich person in the office right now makes a complete fool out of himself every time he gets on the TV screen.
Well, that's just Donald Trump, 'cause that's always been the Donald Trump way, is to draw attention to himself. That's why. That's why this man has billions. 'Cause that's how he made his name, by being the Donald Trump.
Jordan, you're fired.
I'm just seeing both sides. But you can't fire me from my podcast.
I can fire you from Starbucks. I got you the job. I'll be like, he's no longer qualified. Actually, I feel like at this point you're like above me since you got partner of the quarter.
No comment.
No comment. I've been there for 2 years, or almost 2 years, and I feel like you're already better than me, man.
Apparently not. I couldn't find the quote that he brought up about Starbucks and like the reason why he started it. Or actually he started it because he started a different company. But he was talking about how he went to Italy. So that was like going back to travel.
Mm-hmm.
He went to Italy and he saw he liked the vibe of like the
The coffee
barista
shops
there,
there,
like the
yeah.
little coffee shop, the barista talking to everyone, like making the drinks, like the performance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he wanted to bring back to America.
Yeah, I remember reading that. I know what you're talking about now. Yeah. How he was all like, I wanted to recreate that experience, but here in America. And a lot of people talk about how it's really deviated as the company got more business focused. But I know lately Starbucks has really been pushing to get back that reputation of being a friendly place after all the scandals and the big news stuff that have happened.
That's what the book is about, because he takes it back to 2008 when like everything was going on and he had to step back on as CEO
Mm-hmm.
to like drive them forward again, or as the book is called, Onward.
Yeah, I mean, with 2008, the recession, nobody really wants to buy a $5 cup of coffee every day, unless you're Jeff Bezos.
Even then, Amazon was little.
Yeah, that's true. Amazon's completely taken over the world.
No, but like going back to traveling, like it opens you up.
Oh,
Like
it
you'll
does
see.
definitely. Like, especially like with the culture and just trying to immerse yourself in the way the world functions in another part that you probably would have never seen if you didn't open yourself up. It really changes your outlook on everything. Cause I come here now, I look at our chocolate croissants at Starbucks. I'm just be like, the chocolate croissants in Paris, they smack a little harder.
Yeah, the pan au chocolat.
Mm-hmm. And like every time we'd go to a restaurant, they have like these like combos where you can get like an appetizer and your entree, or an entree and a dessert.
Leandre.
Yeah. And then they give you your little cup of coffee or espresso, like whatever you ask for with your meal. Like you just sit down and you talk. And that's the vibe that I really enjoyed.
Cause just a human connection.
Mm-hmm.
That's really all it is. Cause everyone's related. Like if you don't believe in evolution, then I don't know what the fuck you believe in. But it's just there. We all share the same DNA. We're all humans. We all live on the same earth.
Is it flat?
It is not flat.
It's not flat. I agree. Just needed to know.
It's not flat.
All right. Did we go to the moon?
That's for another episode.
That's
But
another episode.
as I was saying about the humans, or just even every living thing on Earth is similar. We're
Yeah.
what 96% related to chimps.
Mm-hmm.
Like
DNA
something
wise.
DNA. Yeah, that's why DNA wise we're 96% related to chimps. I don't know the exact number, but you should go to Joe Rogan for that. That's like all he ever talks about chimps and DMT.
We need that Joe Rogan podcast with Kanye West. That's
That's
what we
cool.
need.
That's cool now, but have you tried DMT?
No.
But like, no, it doesn't matter if you're like here. Like, I something I realized. It just hit a little more just 'cause I was living there. Like whenever I was in the hostel with like a bunch of these different people from like all over. Like they all spoke English, but like one of them was like British, the other one was American, the other one was Australian, the other one was Irish. Like we all spoke English, but it was like completely different Englishes. And then going to France, there was like I hung out with like a group of Hispanics, but like one of them was from Spain, the other one was from like Argentina. So it was all completely different Spanish. And that's just like two of like the examples I had.
Yeah.
But we're all the same. Like humans are the same. We all I remember I read about this a while ago that it's it's a Buddhist monk and a Muslim like in line at the grocery store. And one of them obviously believes in like what our Buddhist believes, and the other one's a Muslim, so he has like his beliefs. They're completely different, and they they think they live the basic like the completely different life, but they're still in line to buy food. They're gonna go home to their families. They're gonna wake up the next day, go to their jobs. We all live the same life. We're all the same.
Yeah. When I was in Paris, um, I went to a bar and I went to a restaurant, and at both places, I found two girls living in Paris from Mexico. So at the first place I went to was the bar, and the girl was the bartender, and we were talking to her in Spanish, cause we had this idea. The first day we were there, we we got a couple rude remarks from the French for our English.
Oh, it's just everyone.
Yeah,
Like all the French people. They
yeah.
don't. They're not the friendliest.
So we had this idea of like speaking Spanish when we went out, and that really worked because of the proximity to Spain and how a lot of people like speak Spanish or at least some Spanish. And so we were able to get around Paris pretty much our entire trip with Spanish anytime we went out. And so we started speaking Spanish at the bar, and the bartender comes up to us and she's like, "Hablan español?" And we're like, "Yeah." And so she's like, "Where are you guys from?" So we tell her, we're from the States, but we're Mexican and we're Pakistani. She's like, "Oh my God, that's really crazy." And so she's like, "Yeah, I'm from Mexico." And we're like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, I moved here a couple months ago and I work here, but I've been here for a good time now and I really like it here." And so it's just crazy, like somebody from a place you wouldn't expect just completely changed their life and moved to Paris. Kind of like your brother
Mm.
moved from here to Paris, changed his life. And then the restaurant we went to, uh, our server was from Mexico. And so we were talking to her, and she was just telling us like it's really crazy how she moved here with nothing, and how these people really took a chance on her and let her get a job at their restaurant because it was a local family restaurant. And so they're really giving her a chance to like live out her dream in Paris of living there. But she was really smart too. She spoke a lot of languages. She spoke English, Spanish, French, and I'm pretty sure she had one other one up her sleeve.
I remember I met this one guy in Germany because we are trying to set up my phone, and then at first he was having difficulties because he spoke very limited English. So he would like try to ask me some things and I wouldn't understand. So they like had to go to like German to English and that back and forth. And then like the other guy walked out, so we're trying to communicate, and then like he asked for my ID because that's like what they do. So I showed him. he sees the last name, so he's like, "Hablas español?" Like, sí, ¿por qué? And it's like, damn, you really made me
You had me
like you,
struggling.
yeah, you had me struggling for a while. Why didn't you tell me? Like, you never asked. And then it turned out he was from Dominican Republic. Like, out of nowhere, right? He we just started like going back and forth. Like, oh yeah, I'm from the Dominican Republic. I moved to Germany like 10 or 12 years ago, something like that. And it was cool. Like, we're just having a full blown conversation. Like, why'd you move here? Stuff like that. We ended up talking about baseball because it's like big for them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like so random because I wouldn't think I'd be talking about baseball in like Germany.
With somebody from the Dominican
Yeah,
Republic.
that's like the motherland for baseball. And we're just talking. And just something completely out of the blue. And I found it cool. And then my friend was just looking at us like, what are these people saying?
See, something like those people, I don't think I could pull the trigger on that. I don't think I could move to another country and live there, like live out my life there.
You never know.
That's true. I'm still pretty young. I'm only 19. I don't know what I want to do with my life. But
I want to move to Bali.
to Bali,
It's cheap over there.
and it's
It's like
beautiful.
it's beautiful. It's cheap. I've heard that it's actually like the getaway place if you want to be an entrepreneur. So I've actually thought about that once. I like
If it's the getaway place for
it's
all the
like my part.
entrepreneurs, isn't everybody going there already?
Not really, because you wouldn't think of going to Bali. You'd think of like going to Paris or New York or like the really big city. But those cities are expensive as fuck. That's why they all go there, because
Mhm.
it's expensive. That means they have a lot of demand to live there. But no one goes to Bali. When have you heard someone saying, I'm gonna go to Bali?
I've never heard of somebody moving to Bali. I've heard of people vacationing in Bali.
Yeah, no one's moved there. Like, long story short, that's like either there, somewhere, or somewhere in Germany. Just for a while, just for a few years. Try to get something going, and then just continue what I'm doing, basically.
You gotta start vlogging once you move, or once you start traveling again, so we can keep up
Vlog
with
more.
you. Yeah, I really enjoyed the videos that you made while you were abroad. Like
Mhm.
my favorite was probably the one episode where you asking people to feed you.
Oh, the Berlin one? That
Yeah,
was my favorite one.
where you kept on asking people to feed you. I was like, that's really cool. That like people actually said yes to feed a
Mhm.
stranger.
You just have to give off like good energy. That's really all it is. Same with in Starbucks, like you just have to give off good energy.
Mhm.
Even if the customer's being shit to you, just try your best. If you're frustrated, just don't answer back. Just like, here you go. Here's your stuff, whatever.
Hey, if you're stressed, you can always walk out, man.
Yeah,
We've
just
had a couple
go.
people do that.
Just go to McDonald's right next door. They don't give a shit about you.
That's true. But if you're my regular customer at Starbucks, I really care that you come every day and you say hello.
It's funny because whenever they don't go there for like a week, they come back. Hey, where you been?
Dude, yeah, 'cause there's customers who came so consistently and now they never come. One of the ones,
Some of them because they went to the new store.
yeah, sadly we lost some business to that new store. Like, I don't know if you remember Miss Shay. She used to get a soy caramel macchiato.
Yeah.
She never comes anymore, man.
She drove there one day,
To
and
the new
then like
store.
Sabrina, no, with us, and Sabrina got super excited, and they were talking for a while. I didn't know what was going on, but I was like, wait, I didn't recognize her, but Sabrina did. And then once she
Mhm.
pulled up there, I was like, oh my god, like where have you been?
She moved to the new store, didn't she? 'Cause she used to come every single morning.
She got a machine or something like that, like an
Oh, like
espresso
her
machine or
own espresso machine.
something like that. I
I mean, it
forgot.
saves you money,
It does,
but
but we end up missing.
you miss the human interaction. My girlfriend's mom did that. She was like, I'm spending too much money at Starbucks, so she got her a little coffee machine, and I used my partner mark out to get her some beans to work with, and so she's been making her caramel macchiatos at home. But yeah, that I mean that's one of the cool things. You know, you learn how to do things on your own.
Mhm.
But when you do things on your own, you miss out on that human connection, man.
But you can come back to it every once in a while. Like you said, it'll feel more special, and it wouldn't be like oh, you come here anyway every way, so what?
Yeah, that's true. Cause when you see somebody you haven't seen in a long time, like you just get that feeling like,
Mhm.
oh my god, you're back. Like me when I
Mhm.
cried for my boy Luis when he finally pulled up. I was so happy, man. I finally got my kid back. And he comes every single day. Ever
Hey,
since
that's
that day,
cool.
he's come every single day. And so, like, knowing there's people out there who are consistent in your life and they're really there for you, that's what
Like,
matters.
don't take it for granted.
Don't take it for granted. Like, don't take your baristas for granted, because someday they'll just quit or they'll move stores
Or they'll become a millionaire, and the
and
next
you'll
thing you
never
know,
see them
they're on
again.
Forbes magazine, and like,
And they just
hey,
bought Starbucks.
they bought out Starbucks or the CEO. You can go on Forbes, like, man, he
I
made
used
my
to know that
caramel
guy.
macchiato perfectly.
He needs to make my macchiatos again. Or he made a dope flat white.
No, there's one that told me like it was even my first day on bar. I'll never forget it. Or like my first morning, like I made his drink. He was like, "Man, no one's ever made it like right the first time." I'm like, it was the one with the 8 pumps,
Oh, the 8 pumps vanilla. And then,
the caramel macchiato.
yeah, he comes every day.
Yeah, he does. He was like, "You're the first one that's made it right the first time." I was like, "Damn."
Yeah, I used to. My first job, like my first real job ever, was at a movie theater. And, you'd have your regulars at the movie theaters too, man.
Mhm.
And so I worked in the restaurant area, and we had this lady named Patti. And she'd come, and, like, I'd already know half her order. Like, she came with her whole family.
Mhm.
But they always got a lot of the same things. So I'd, like, have half her order down. And I'll be like, just, what are you adding today? Because they'd always get, like, like 3 mango smoothies, cheese fries with bacon, and like they'd get a couple other stuff, and I put it all in for them, and then she would just ask me, "You got it all?" It's like, "Yeah, I got you." Like, just developing relationships with your regular customers, like, it brings them back, shows them you care. And I think we should just be doing that with regular people,
Mhm.
like people you see on a daily basis. You might not have a talking relationship with them right now, but if you approach them with a hello, and then you just keep going from there every day, like, it develops into a real friendship. That's all it takes. It starts with a
Not
simple
only that,
hello.
like you never know when you're gonna meet like your next business partner, your next like spouse
Mhm.
or whoever. You don't know.
Yeah.
So going back to that question, because we're close to 2 hours, we're gonna go back to that very first question. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
In 10 years, I would have traveled to all the continents. Like, if it goes to plan, and I would have seen some continents more than once, and hopefully I'll be done with school and I'll have a stable job. I want to live in Dallas.
Mm.
I I'm a Dallas boy, born born and raised. Like, I even want a tattoo with the Dallas skyline. And like, I'm going to get it soon. It's looking like February that
Mm.
I've got it lined up. But I see myself living in Dallas, but also traveling. Definitely want to do a lot of traveling. I'm never going to stop traveling. I think once you get your first trip done, like, that hunger to see more is always there. And especially with stuff like social media, where like you can find so many pictures of like places from around the world, and like recommendations of where you should go. It's just all out there, man, and I want to see it all. So in 10 years, I still want to be traveling. I want to be out there
Mm.
somewhere.
Any last thing before we wrap this up?
Yeah.
Like
J-
any sort of advice for people or any last thing you want to get out, any last idea you want to talk about?
just travel, and also check in on your friends. people you haven't talked to in a while, just hit them up, or people who you wish things went different with, hit them up, talk to them, let them know that you're thinking about them. Sometimes that's all they need. Like you say, "Hey, it's been a while, but I'm just checking in on you. Make sure you're okay because I know it's hard out here, especially once you're out of high school and you don't see the same people every day. Like those people, sometimes you just gotta say hello. So check up on your friends, travel, and work on yourself. Just do what you gotta do to be where you want to be."
That's a good message. But it was great having you on here. I know we talked about it for a few months,
Thank you,
but
Jordan.
finally happened. So I appreciate that.
You're welcome. It was a good conversation.
All right, I'll see y'all later.